Movie Wars.
Back to the Movie Wars podcast. I'm back with my friend Matthew Blevins. What's going on, man?
What's up, dude? What's up, Movie Wars?
Yeah.
Crowd? Yeah, man.
Dude, you've been busy, man. I've been seeing you. You've been posting your shows. You've been working all over the place. How are your shows going, man?
You know, there's a lot of great shows happening all around, so it's kind of fun to go do a road gig and try out a room full of new people somewhere and just like blow a brewery. They weren't expecting someone like me to show up and just talk to them for a half an hour, and we all learn things together. So best Reuben sandwich I'd ever had too. So those those are my favorite shows when you can get like a great sandwich.
Yeah. What are you too good for the 5 drunken comics left at the draw, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
Man, I don't know if I have it in me anymore to subject myself to that. It feels like masochism at a certain point to do those, but occasionally, you come up with new ideas. You have to go do that to yourself. But if you can keep your calendar full of other stuff, then you don't necessarily have to do what I've called the comedy Kobayashi Maru scenarios. You can you can just go enjoy your time.
That's amazing. It kind of makes me think this would be a great idea. Here's a new idea for an open mic. At the end of it, there's a Russian roulette table, and if
Did
it's
he
just,
we don't know if that was problematic. You can mute that if that was a problem. But I was doing Deer Hunter. It was a reference.
Yeah.
We need, I think there are a few dark characters in every comedy scene that would take it that far for a chance at like a Kill Tony minute or something like that. That's the inevitable conclusion of those types of shows is like a Squid Game scenario where, let's take it all the way.
Yeah, Deer Hunter's where you should go. That's where my mind went automatically. It's it's just so embedded.
Yeah.
Well, we are rounding out. It took us some time. We've been all over the place. I've been traveling. You've been traveling. We have finally, but we're landing the plane on our Mad Max franchise finally, and we're in a weird spot here. We have Furiosa.
Yeah, it's kind of like we've had a great time. We had Fury Road right before this one, and of course Beyond Thunderdome is problematic. It's not a great watch by any means, but it's still like a classic Mad Max movie. But now we've got to round out our series together on this.
Yeah,
Furiosa. It's not even a Mad Max movie. It's a Mad Max tale.
Yeah, Mad Max tale. Even though he, the way he copped out of the inconsistencies of the timeline of all the other ones is he called those fireside tales or fairy tales. So now have a real tale.
Yeah. I don't know, a tale or oh man, I've had to watch it like 4 times in preparation for this. Because to be honest with you, when we started this series, I'm such a weird nerd that I watched them all in a row, thinking that we were just going to knock out a podcast about the Mad Max series.
And then we did one each.
Yeah, and I don't remember when that journey started, but to end it on such a tale, it just seems anticlimactic.
Well, I feel bad about that. I'm a bad producer for having you go through that way. I'm so sorry.
No, not at all. Not at all. It was, I think I would have done it that way either way, because I feel like I wanted to put them all in context that weekend anyway, because, they all they're a representation of like indie or action movie of their respective time, for better or worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a good place to start. Like earlier you said something, you said Beyond Thunderdome, and we're going to talk about at the end, we're going to stack rank our personal thoughts, and we're going to give our little summaries, just kind of what we've learned and what we think about this franchise as a whole. But there's a weird pattern with Miller here now that we're seeing. We have a big enough body of work now in this franchise, and it's almost like he has two extremes, like real extreme storytelling. Like Road Warrior is just so deep. Even though it's not a complex story, it still feels very deep. Fury Road goes deep, not just in terms of like how it's made, but like the action and the stunts, and like they just went so all in. But then he has this other extreme, which is where this movie, in my opinion, and Thunderdome belong, which is caricatures of the franchise. And I put the word in my notes, spoof. Like it almost feels like this movie and Beyond Thunderdome are more on the spoof spectrum of these movies.
Okay, so the first note that I had here is that I figured out a way to enjoy this particular movie, and that's to pretend that it's a Zucker Brothers parody of all of the worst traits of Mad Max movies. Then you can actually enjoy this piece of crap.
So we were in the same exact vein on that thought then.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I'll teach you everything you need to know about Road War. I mean, that should be in an airplane style spoof of a Mad Max movie, but not a real Mad Max movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we did a good job nailing down what it was in Thunderdome, but I'm curious to hear what it is for you. But for me, it's definitely Dementis here. I mean, Dementis is a cartoon to me in a lot of ways. He's way too muscular. I mean, Lord Humongous was muscular, but he also wore like a weird hockey mask and a tunic and spoke like Shakespeare. And for some reason we buy it then. Like if for some reason that made sense. Like we don't know where he was lifting weights. But here, Hemsworth sticks out he's just like a cartoon.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's really no depth of range in the emotions that he portrays. It's like, I'm angry, Dementis. It's like he literally just has one emotion per shade that the character takes on, and then he's just this absurd buffoon that makes these demands, and somehow he just bumbles his way through the apocalypse as this leader figure, simply because he's muscular and charismatic. So that's why I've been working out and lifting weights every day, because if you develop enough charisma on stage, then perhaps you can be useful in the apocalypse. I'm going to get a motorcycle chariot and we're going to make this work.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's interesting too. I think it was a little bit of a lazy argument too, because the defenders of this movie, they kind of leaned into like, well, you just don't want a female protagonist. And I hear what they're saying, because there is that is out in the ether, and we've seen that go both ways. I mean, you can point to Ghostbusters and say bad, but the thing is that with Furiosa was beloved. Like, she was the biggest surprise of Fury Road, was that everyone was just so on board, and Charlize's portrayal of Furiosa was beloved. It's in this fan base. You and I actually talked about this a few episodes ago, that although there are some negative portrayals of women, and they're not like negative in the zeitgeist, they're actual portrayals of what I think would happen to women in these scenarios. But he loves women rising and showing their strength. Like, he elevates them. Furiosa is that. He's had in Road Warrior 2, some of the villages and things that form are led by women. Miller has empowered women in this franchise before. So to say that we didn't like this because we don't want a female leading this film is completely asinine to me.
Yeah. I mean, not to say that some sci-fi fan bases can have some toxic elements to it. And, there are some dudes in there that maybe have some outdated ideas about things, but that's not the sci-fi fan base that I know. I mean, dudes like us that tend to be more conscientious about things, and, and that wasn't the problem for me at all either. The Furiosa character, I didn't necessarily find the story compelling or interesting when it really gets down to it, because it's like Charlize Theron, her character was intriguing, not necessarily because we knew exactly where she came from. It's just that stoicism, that same kind of that the eyes say everything that you got with the Mel Gibson's Max in previous films. I mean, that's what made those characters great. It has nothing to do with gender at all, and and she, she was one of the better parts of this movie anyhow. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I think too, prequels always start off in the negative, in my opinion. Like, if you're going to do a prequel of a long-standing franchise, you are kind of starting off behind the eight ball because you take out suspense. So you have to find new ways to create suspense because we know the end result. So you have to maybe over-index on trauma or over-index on other elements to keep that story feeling full. But for me, I don't know how you think, but like, for example, I'm a giant Thomas Harris fan. Like, some of the first books I loved were The Silence of the Lambs, Red Dragon. Those were some of my favorite books. Now, Red Dragon is the first book, and it's the best book in my opinion. But they didn't make the Red Dragon movie until years later. So you have years of this, Hannibal Lecter business going, and it's like, you have to watch this. This is the map. So you're almost watching this. This is the map that gets me to current state. So I know the end result. So I'm expecting a pretty good map here. Like, you're gonna take me on a little mini journey here. And so to me, I was like, is this really the story that mapped us to Fury Road? Is this really how we got there? And this is really what they landed on?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, you could have had a middle schooler with Chat GPT that could have linked those bridges more effectively. Because I didn't connect to the story in any kind of meaningful way. There was nothing that kind of grabbed me about that character. You are behind that eight ball, and, not to be cynical, but, perhaps there was a cash grab element here, or a timing element. Fury Road had so much time and preparation and storyboarding and world building that happened before that movie was made, whereas this one, just a couple of years later, and all of a sudden you're using mocap techniques, and you're kind of getting into less of the practical effects, which is kind of what made the Mad Max series so genre defining in the first place. So then why make the movie at all? Was it, I mean, did Miller really need to tell this story, or is it just like, we can capitalize this and now you can have it on HBO Max?
Yeah. And in Mad Max terms, this was rushed. I mean, the distance between Thunderdome to Fury Road, it took from 98 to 2015 to make and release Fury Road. The turnaround time here is, obviously, it's still a long time, but comparatively, I mean, this is rushed. I mean, you can see the extensive use of, there were still some really interesting scenes that were reliant on practical effects, but we're seeing a lot of green screen. Sometimes I'm seeing some of these scenes, I'm thinking, wow, it's like Zack Snyder's hanging out around here somewhere. Like the saturation, a lot of the Dementis driving scenes were so obviously green screen that I'm like, wow, they rushed this. They actually rushed this, and it's still a pretty good result for being rushed in today's Hollywood, but still fell way short of the marker to me.
Yeah. I mean, why was it? It's not necessary in the way that. So that short gap that you talk about between Fury Road and Furiosa, if you think about it, then that gap existed from the Road Warrior to Beyond Thunderdome as well. That was kind of a tight gap as well. And then you had those 80s influences that we talked about in the early episodes. Now we're kind of into those 2020 influences in movie making where, it isn't as in depth. It is more CGI driven in a lot of aspects. There isn't as much heart and soul behind it. So it doesn't feel as essential. Neither Beyond Thunderdome did not feel essential either, and it felt like a product of that particular time as well. So,
yeah. Fan base, their listeners, you probably have a friend at work that you're thinking, that person's planning for the apocalypse. Like, they seem like a nerd at work, but they are scheming. They have canned goods. They have minerals. They are planning. Send this podcast to that person. Let them listen. Send that Mad Max from Matthew and I. This is the most in-depth Mad Max franchise podcast out there. Send it to them. Let them know. Share it with your friends. You got a friend like that probably work, right, Matthew? There's probably somebody like that person. They're going to take over, or they want to.
I'm afraid to have friends at work because, I just,
yeah.
I'm strange, I guess, when you get right down to it, by most people's standards. So it's better just to be knowledgeable and useful. That's what I find.
Yeah. Yeah, friends in and out of work have been a problem for me for a long time. Both.
Same.
It's just really.
That's why we do podcasts together.
Yep.
So this is if for all you Movie Wars fans out there. This is the extent of Kyle and I's friendship.
Yeah.
Is occasionally we're on a lineup together, and then we do podcasts, and he's one of the closest friends that I have.
We're basically brothers. Yeah. We're basically brothers.
Yeah. I talked to you more than I've talked to my brother this year for sure.
I mean, let's think about it. We are recording this on Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah.
let's
Which
just
never
put that out
even
there.
occurred to me really, because I like I said, I'm a strange nerd. It never occurred to me that it is Super Bowl Sunday. So go teams, I guess.
Yeah, and when you have a friend, and here's the thing too, when people find out at work you do comedy, and I avoid telling people.
I keep those worlds very siloed. You know, I don't talk about my job on stage, and I don't talk about my stage at the job. You know, they're just two different worlds to me.
Because people are just like, you're going to make us laugh. It's like, well, I don't really want to. No, not really.
I've been down that road at jobs before too, and then people find it too interesting because a lot of people's day-to-day lives are kind of boring, and then you've got shows coming up all the time, and you're doing all these interesting things, and it's the topic of the conversation all the time, and it's just not. I don't want to do that. I like to just buckle down and really focus on what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So don't tell your coworkers what you do. Don't do it. Never.
No.
The questions. On the scale, I made up the scale. It's completely asinine. I made it up out of nowhere, but I imagine Road Warrior is kind of the pinnacle. Fury Road kind of is akin to it because it Road Warrior and Fury Road they really extend the action orientation of this. And then we have the other side of it, Thunderdome. So on a scale of Road Warrior to Thunderdome, where on that spectrum does this movie sit? Is it in the middle? Does it lean one way or the other? What do you think?
I think it's past Thunderdome, frankly. I think it defines the crap end of the spectrum for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think is it the boisterous nature of it? Is it the writing? Is it the characters? What pushes it that way?
It was just unnecessary and unengaging, and it was like I said, it worked well as like a comedy at points. There were some really funny moments to it. That moment at the end where Hemsworth is, oh shoot, I wish I wrote the line down. It's escaping me right now. That wasn't hope. That was instinct.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That made me laugh, and then that road war, that made me kind of giggle, even though maybe it wasn't supposed to. And then you had Praetorian Jack. I don't know if you noticed this, but in the bullet farm scene, when Furiosa is shot by a rocket, he makes an oopsie face. It's ridiculous. Cut to his oopsie face scene. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah, Praetorian.
Like, what kind of hero is this guy?
Dude, I know. And like when he's driving in, what is it? What do they call it? Gas Town. And like he's driving around that very thin ridge, but he's not breaking eye contact with Furiosa. So like it's like he's never like looking at anything else. I'm like, dude, you're gonna drive right off that ledge. You are gonna. I don't care how good you are in this world. You're gonna drive off that ledge.
Yeah, for sure.
Brutal.
Yeah. This guy is a Temu version of a Mad Max. Even as compared to, like, you don't even have to have a Mel Gibson. You don't even have to have a Mel Gibson. He's the Dollar Tree Mad Max.
The Temu. I gotta tell you, during Christmas, this is a total tangent, but. I don't know if you know this, but I quoted you on Seth really wanted to do the Snyder series because he wanted to do he's really into Snyder and he wanted to respond to James Gunn's Superman. I know I've texted you like 3 times randomly when I've thought about it, but your quote that the Superman trailer looked like a Sprint ad from the mid-aughts.
Yeah, dude.
I quoted you.
It's a Sprint PCS commercial, bro. It's
from the mid-aughts.
Yeah, man. It's one of those Z phones with the little microphone that flips down. It's a commercial for one of those.
The way you describe movies, the Temu thing, like you're just so quotable with that. I just die. Sometimes I will randomly the mid-aughts thing will hit me in the middle of the day and I will just chuckle. Like I just don't even know why. It just destroyed me.
Oh man, if I could ever indoctrinate my kids into managing my social media presence, I would be unstoppable.
Yeah, you really would be. You should narrate trailers. Actually,
yeah, I could be Morgan Freeman, dude. Just talk about penguins and shit, dude.
Do like the play-by-play. That Superman one's a tragedy. We can talk about that later. But the cross-eyed Superman all of a sudden with the dog. Like, what are we? Superman. Yeah, have you seen the zoom in? Like, there's a freeze frame that's been going around on social where it looks like it looks like he's cross-eyed. Now they've made really exaggerated ones, but they're like people are like, why? Like, not that there's anything wrong with being cross-eyed, but why is Superman right there cross-eyed? Like, why is he flying and he's cross-eyed? Like, why?
It's not like that was a frame mishap. There's no frames that aren't there on purpose in those types of projects. So.
Yeah, it's so funny. All right, back on track. Sorry, I had to go on that tangent.
Hey, this is the track.
This is the day in the life because we're brothers.
That's right.
Next question: where's Dementis hitting the gym? I mean, those triceps. I mean, Lord Humongous was jacked, but Hemsworth is out of control here.
Yeah. I don't know where his testosterone is coming from, or where he's getting steroids, nor gym time, because he doesn't seem to have equipment, and he seems to spend all of his time in motorcycle church. So I don't know when and where is this gym time happening,
and making really bad deals. He's just a bad negotiator. He's just so bad. Yeah. I do think it was funny though. Like I am going to give this movie some props. Like again, I'm mostly disappointed, but there were a few things I liked. But the idea that Gastown, like he becomes the tyrant there and it completely goes downhill was really funny to me, actually, that he couldn't manage it. Like he's a bad negotiator. Like he negotiates and gets his nipples ripped off. And Gastown, a town of thugs and rejects and basically, enslaved people, turn against him. It's like your triceps aren't working out so well for you now, are they, buddy?
That's right. That's right. Well, and there are some thinly veiled or, not even veiled political commentary stuff happening in there, because at the beginning of this particular movie, they have that same usual voiceover. But then if you listen, I guess the Hemsworth voice prior to the apocalypse goes on there, and it's talking about like fake news or whatever. So you just extrapolate that into, modern political times. And then it's obviously a satire on that whole thing. And, you can ham fist all of that in there if you want to, but that doesn't necessarily have any permanent. Well, I guess it's got politics. I don't know who know. I don't want to get political, because every time I felt like every 4 years I've been just like wincing for the actual apocalypse. And I keep being told it's the worst ever, and so it's like, is this just going to be a snapshot of another one of those times, like the people in 1964 or whenever, things were really tough with the Cuban Missile Crisis, let's say, they were certain that this is the worst that it's ever going to be, or what have you. So you look at the movies of the time, and they're just a byproduct of that particular time and a snapshot of a particular political context that's no longer relevant. So these movies are disposable ultimately, because if you're only capturing like what's happening now, then I don't know, you have to get to a deeper level. And I think there's a lot more interesting things about humanity than there are about politics, which, politics are important, but you can encapsulate that through humanity, which has always been what George Miller was best at. So he didn't capture that at all in this movie.
Yeah, he definitely. Yeah, and if they are trying to weave that in, first of all, I'm like, I think I posted something like this. It's like, God, can I have one conversation where it's just politics don't appear? It's just like
Yeah.
just one. But it's more like Confederacy of Dunces. Did you read Confederacy of Dunces?
No,
Like,
but I like to pretend that I did.
yeah,
So if you cannot let it out that I didn't
okay.
actually read it, I drop it casually in conversations. I don't want to lose my street cred.
No, yeah, okay, cool. We'll edit it in and be like, oh, I wrote it. I mean, I wrote the forward.
I'm aware of it through the character in Sideways making reference to it, so I do have like a personal relationship with it. The guy that wrote Sideways actually followed me on Twitter back when I was a film critic, so I know about Confederacy of Dunces. That's all I'm saying.
You were up there. You actually wrote an expose on it.
That's right.
Because that's what we do. We write exposés.
Expose, yes.
Oh my God, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to drag out a book. I do that sometimes, but dude, Dementis is that book. That's all I'm saying. It's just like just to a T. All right, randos. A lot of interesting stuff here. I always get worried. People ask me why I don't do a ton of brand new movies because it's like, well, it's hard to dig up detail on really new movies, but there's plenty out there. This is really interesting, and I can't wait to see your reaction to this if you didn't know this already. Originally, they wanted to put Charlize Theron in this movie, but they were going to de-age her digitally. That was the original plan. And Miller saw The Irishman, and he saw the Gemini Man film, that Will Smith movie, and said, no, that's not ever going to look good ever. So, and good choice.
Yeah. Or they could have just put her in there. I mean, well,
Yeah.
it's like Wet Hot American Summer style, where the characters just come back all fat and older or whatever. But Charlize Theron is not fat and older, so she could play a younger Charlize Theron with just a little makeup. You don't need technology to get involved.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine how bad that would have looked. I mean, this movie's already suffering from a major saturation of color issue in some scenes. Overwhelming visuals. You had a protagonist that's on the screen, 75% of the time, who's got digital de-aged. We just covered on another Movie Wars, we did the Snyder trilogy, and we covered the fact that Henry Cavill was doing a Mission Impossible movie and they wouldn't let him shave his mustache. And so Snyder, for the Superman movie, or for Justice League, he has this really horrible looking mouth because they CGI'd his mouth in to replace the mustache, and it's so obviously blatantly bad. I'm just like, that would have been a stupid choice here. I mean, I guess, I can't even imagine it.
I would do it with 2004 CGI. Because back in 2004, they actually put time and attention and the stuff that they were doing at Weta and things like that. You would actually think about lighting, and you would think about the how to make it actually look real. So we've digressed because it's become cheap to do it, and they're not thinking about the artistry. They're just trying to dump out a product the cheapest possible way. So I think we need to get back to like heartfelt, like meaningful, putting your soul into a project storytelling, where a stunt guy almost dies. That's where.
Yep.
That's where
near
it gets
death.
me.
We need near death experiences. Blood on the ground is what we need.
Except for unless you're doing a Twilight Zone movie. Less blood.
Do you remember, what was it on T2? What was it, like 4 seconds? I can't remember. It was like 4 seconds of CGI in T2 took like 3 days to render. It was like an insane render time for just like per 1 second was like a day of rendering.
Yeah. Do you remember what it was like to download pictures on a 14.4 modem? I mean,
yes. God forbid a song,
Oh man.
God forbid a song. Oh my God.
Oh man, where were you even getting songs on a 14.4 modem? Because I'm just like Napster. I think by then I had DSL, but 56K modem, you might have a buddy who had his own web server, and he would throw up, whatever MP3s were circulating at the time. A lot of Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah. I remember early YouTube. You know, when like people were like, oh, they got this new thing. And like, I remember thinking this thing's garbage. You know, I could never get a video. Like it was just the first image and it never would play. And that was YouTube for like 3 years for me.
It was a crappy product from 2006 until 2025. No, I can't say that. They're gonna put this on YouTube, and I don't want demonetization because we're gonna be rolling in advertiser money from the Furiosa episode, and I'm not gonna mess that up for anyone.
Yeah, the Fig Newton people are waiting for us to sign the line that is dotted. So.
No, man, are we getting actual Fig Newtons though? I'll do it. I don't need money. Just send me Fig Newtons. I might make that a campaign. Can we make that a thing on the Movie Wars? Like people just mail me Fig Newtons. It's our thing. Just
the shell casings though. They're not going to do the filling. They're just going to send us the stale external shell.
Just the carbs.
just the most processed bread you can get in the marketplace. Seriously though, Fig Newton, if you're out there listening, we would love to have you.
Oh man.
I remember that.
And like I said, not even money, just your products.
Maybe put the filling in a jar. I'll put the filling inside. You don't even have to do that part. I'll get the casing.
Yeah. If it's easier for you, for sure, I'm willing to put them back together.
I will construct it. This really shocked me too. So this had a weird finance structure. The budget was 170 million, but it was actually, I know, right? But it was actually 230 million because the Australia threw in an additional 50 million. Like I don't know why, but they threw them a bone to film in Australia. So they got an additional 50 million. They were anticipated to make 40 million domestically. They forecasted 40 million internationally. They only made 31 million. It was the worst Memorial Day release of all time at the time, and it was beat by the movie Garfield.
All right.
Fury indeed.
That's just the most beautiful thing. Yeah. I don't know. God has a sense of humor, I think.
That damn cat. I couldn't believe that though. I mean, I just to consider that I saw Fury Road 3 times in theaters, and I knew a guy that saw it 9 times in theaters. Yeah. I mean, that movie was rolling.
I don't know. This just seems like some sort of CIA psyop or something. They're funneling government funds into a George Miller movie for who knows what reason. I don't know. We're spreading apocalyptic propaganda now at this point.
Yeah, why throw him a bone? Why throw him a 50 mil? Like, why did Australia do that? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know, because this movie needed to exist. Apparently, this was the zeitgeist changer.
It's crazy. This was going to be anime, and they actually got like 80% into finalizing the story as anime. I'm not a big anime guy. You know more about it than I do. What do you think about that?
I think that could have been a really fascinating project. Actually, I think that would have made more sense, because this is more of like a serialized version of the Mad Max story, and it's kind of like you could spin off a story like they did with the Matrix films, like the Animatrix film. Something like this would have. Yeah, I didn't realize that was in the works. Can we just do a redo? Take this one back. I think it could be a fantastic if you got the right animators behind it and were conscientious about it. Then the kind of the gaps in the story of this particular movie wouldn't be so glaring, because you could have a lot more interesting visual storytelling. Because without the dangerous practical effects that usually you'd find in a Mad Max movie, there's nothing interesting about it. So. If you could do something interesting visually with animation, you could have something really fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not into anime that much, but one thing I have enjoyed is, I can't remember what it's called, but the the Cyberpunk 2077 video game. They have the, what is it called, Netrunners anime that goes with it, and I know that I haven't seen it, but a lot of people have raved about it as almost a really great extension. So there are people out there making kind of almost complementary series or films or shows that are anime to complement other mediums. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's a logical. I mean, it just pairs extremely well with that genre. That genre has its roots in samurai films and in Western films, and it's the same stuff that the Mad Max series is made of in the first place. So I mean, it's only a natural conclusion to have a Mad Max anime series, really.
Yeah, that's interesting. Last rando, it's kind of a long rando. It's mostly just facts about Anya Taylor-Joy, who we'll get to when we talk about casting. First of all, she had never driven a car before. She didn't have a driver's license and never driven a car. So that's kind of cool, you know?
Yeah.
That actually was true in Fast and Furious too. A few of the actresses in that film had never driven either or had driver's licenses. So I guess that's a thing. I don't know where these people are all coming from where they just don't drive. So
New York City, I suppose.
I guess so. Yeah. Or Italy or...
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or Neptune.
Yeah. I think Anya Taylor-Joy might be a Pleiadian or something. I don't know where she came from.
Oh, it's so true. And there's a lot of weird things about this. Like, I've listened to a few podcasts and read a lot to prepare for this. And there's a lot of weird stuff out there about her relationship with making this movie. It was very hard on her. And there's, that also played a little bit into it. I also think Tom Hardy and Charlize Theron maybe don't want to get back into this world because of how grueling it was. And it was really hard on her. It was so hard on her that when she was interviewed, I think by Variety magazine, she says, I don't want to talk about it. I can't talk about it. It's going to take me 2 years to process what it was like. I'm like, okay. I mean, yeah, I bet it was hard, but you're still like one of the highest earning actresses out there. I mean, was it so hard you can't do this interview, or what happened that you can't?
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he went all Kubrick on her for not even a great movie.
Oh, I hope not. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we got another Shelley Duvall on our hands here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although, let's check back in on her in about 30 years, and if she goes all Shelley Duvall, and it's for Furiosa, I mean.
Yeah, she's smoking cigarettes, talking to an imaginary friend.
Yeah. She's farming goats. I mean,
yeah, the goats is where you gotta just say goodbye.
I would. Oh man, if I didn't have an HOA, I would get goats.
It's a major goat action.
Oh,
they
man.
eat the trash instead of you could also save money. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Is they would convert like your yard and just whatever random garbage you had in the badass goat meat.
I haven't had goat. I don't think. Is it good?
I haven't either. But I could put it on my smoker. I live in Tennessee, man. I've got a smoker. You could throw some smoke on that thing and the right herbs and spices. There's no way it's not going to be awesome.
Yeah. I guess that's what they mean when they say get goated. I don't know. That was really bad. I might cut my own joke there. That was really stupid. Self-editing at this point. Closing this out. She also said it took her forever to watch the final cut, and when she finally did, she said she was sobbing in the first 3 minutes of watching this film.
Yeah, me too.
For different reasons.
Probably the same ones.
Like, this is not that good.
This is 2 hours and 28 minutes.
Yeah. She's quoted saying, and afterward, I cannot speak. I found it very traumatizing to watch. I mean, she was in The Northman, she was in The Witch, and this is the one that traumatized her. Dude, The Witch traumatized me.
Yeah, no kidding.
But this is the one?
I suppose there are some grueling shooting conditions, I don't know if it's maybe like an Abyss situation where they, but on trucks and things, maybe she, or like an Uma Thurman in Kill Bill 2 type of situation where there was a tragic automobile thing, it's hard to say what traumatizes a person about a particular film experience. It didn't seem, or maybe it just kind of sucked to be shooting in like the motion capture locations all day long. I mean, that could be a rather traumatizing experience, and then having to go on location at times in hot locations, and maybe she wasn't. I don't know. Maybe not prepared for the Australian.
Yeah, that could be it. I was just wondering, like, man, this is quite a response.
Yeah.
Yeah. You ready to war here, to road warrior the war score card here.
Yeah.
Are we ready? Let's get Furiosa here. I'm really doing bad on these.
It's gonna Furiosted.
Yes. Yeah. There we go. We're gonna do dips. We're gonna do tricep dips on a corpse here to keep our triceps in good shape. I'm just still can't figure
teabag it at the same time.
He would too. He dude, you know, he was like a gamer.
Yeah.
He just like annoyed. Dude, oh my God, I have so many thoughts. But let's get there. Let's get there right now. Top bill cast. And remember, shiny and chrome is yes, good, I dug it. Blood bag is no, hated it, don't like it. Top bill cast: Anya Taylor-Joy, Chris Hemsworth, Tom Burke as Praetorian Jack. What do you think?
Yeah. You know, they're all fantastic actors, and I respect all of them respectively. But in this particular project, it's just a blood bag for me. There was nothing interesting about them. There was no depth to their portrayals of these characters. It was just, you know, one-dimensional portrayals of these characters that were either louder or softer depending on the scenario.
Yeah. So you're going blood bag.
Blood bag all the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. I struggle sometimes because when we see really great performances, we tend to credit actors, and we see really bad performances. I feel like my weird tendency is like, well, were they written well? You know, but it's like, or should I blame the actors there too? I don't know. I'm really divided. To me, it's I probably go blood bag because I do think Hemsworth sticks out like a sore thumb here. He's not just with how he looks, but the way he delivers everything, the lines. He's the worst. He's probably the worst villain in this entire franchise. And this is
maybe the worst character in the entire franchise as well, because he's just completely out of place.
Out of place, annoying, written really badly, and honestly was so really monotone. I mean, he doesn't really show a lot of range either.
Nope.
Yeah. And there wasn't, the thing that Road Warrior does really well is that it's not just Lord Humongous. It's, you know, we have all kinds of different people. We have Wes's boyfriend. We have all these different interesting characters that kind of combine and melt into this overwhelming presence. But here, you know, and I'll get to this more in supporting cast, but like the War Boys, for example, like I actually had so much sympathy for the War Boys in Fury Road because they were presented as these people that had no choice. They were at the end of their half-life and they were willing to sacrifice themselves for this cause. And the way that they presented that to us was, it was clear. It was simple, but it was clear that this was really sad. But there's none of that here. Like, these War Boys were even mailed in. You know, they had less character.
Well, the Bobby Knocker operator was perhaps the only sympathetic amongst them, although he kind of had one job to do and he failed it because he was using the spray paint recreationally instead of, because this is business spray paint. It has a particular function. You can't just huff it and then screw up the one job you had and then get shot in the head anyway. This is ridiculous.
Undocumented use of the Valhalla Chrome. It's a citation for sure. It's malfeasance is what it is.
Yeah, it's mediocre.
Mm-hmm. And then he ruined Cabbage.
He's got spray paint and blood all over the cabbage. You're gonna have to peel back a couple of layers for sure.
Mm-hmm. After already sitting his probably very not clean ass on the cabbage for the entire sweaty ride through the desert.
Oh, could you imagine? I mean, they're already pissing into bottles most of the time, but there's no way. They don't have bidets out there, man. These guys. Yeah. Oh, you don't even want to picture it.
Yeah, this is a bad war boy. But yeah, I go blood bag for that. You know, and I guess we really got to talk about Anya Taylor-Joy to get really specific. I've seen this movie twice. I saw it in theaters, and then I saw it today prepping for this. I'm okay with this portrayal. I love her. I love her as an actress. I especially love it when she works with Robert Eggers. I've loved The Witch. Loved her in The Northman. She's probably right now the hardest working actress in Hollywood. I see her everywhere, shows, she's always got like a movie and a show coming out at the same time. Like, and she's usually really good. Like I said earlier, her performance didn't map back to Theron to me. So to me, it's a prequel. Yeah. So I'm expecting her at least to be at the level.
Right.
In this instance, she wasn't at the level of Fury Road. So, you know, again, I hate saying it because I love her in literally everything, but here it just felt underperformed.
Yeah, and you know, who knows? It can't possibly. I don't think that's on her. I don't know. There were only so many things she could do with this particular story, I guess.
Yeah. All right, 0 to 1, we are blood bagging here. Supporting cast. There's quite a few to go through here, but like any Mad Max film, most of these people we don't know. So I'm trying to look for the history man, George Shestov. Ayla Brown is young Furiosa. Kind of a highlight for me, actually. We'll get into that. Yeah. We have a new Immortan Joe here, though. Lacey Hume. That's new, right? That's not the guy that played him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the original guy was Toe Cutter from the original film, which was Hughes. I'm bad with pulling
Hugh
names.
Kettner?
Something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how I could...
something keys. I can't recall.
Noticeably different. Noticeably different. John Howard as the people eater. Angus Sampson as the organic mechanic. I'm looking for interesting ones here. Rictus, Nathan Jones. Scrotus, Josh Hellman, and Toe Jam, David Field. We'll stop there. Well, Smeg, David Collins, Smeg was in there quite a bit too. What do you think?
You know, I think back on some of those characters, and they're interesting enough to. I think I could go half a blood bag on them because if the ones that you listed are very interesting, they're very singular in their own respect. They went with whatever they were doing, and they really went with it. You can tell that they were trying to embody these weird post-apocalyptic characters, but there were some henchmen amongst them that looked like they used moisturizer.
Yeah,
because the rest of them there's just a lot of actors amongst them that aren't as like chiseled and defined and like battered as you'd find in those previous Mad Max films, where you'd find these Australian and oddballs. I mean, there's a share of them, and you talk about like the word guy, for instance. He very it's chiseled onto his face. He's got that thing that really makes these movies visually interesting with these rich characters, but there are just a lot of oh man, well manicured dudes amongst them as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like in The Walking Dead when people started noticing the really well trimmed lawns, in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. Like, wow, they really took care of that lawn there.
Yeah, it just jumps right out at you.
Yeah, I totally agree. I go full on blood bag here. Mainly the War Boys being the biggest thing. I know we didn't really list them, but that would be included in supporting cast. Just Fury Road, the story, and this is something else that Road Warrior does perfectly too, is that the story is coming from everywhere. Like even the smallest side character, War Boy or henchman, for some reason, there's a story being told.
Right?
It could be what they wear. I can't remember who it was, but one of the early ones in Fury Road, when Furiosa is first starting to go away, and she's veering off the path, and there's that one older War Boy with the glasses.
You can picture him right away. He's so defined. You can picture. Yeah, that one particular character, and he doesn't have a ton of lines in the movie necessarily, but it's just that the Australian outback is just mapped in the lines on this guy's face.
Yeah, he sticks out in my mind still. There's none of that here.
No.
And we have a lot of characters here that were in Fury Road that are lesser versions of themselves. They're watered down, they're toned down. I think Immortan Joe being one of the biggest examples here. Like, he wasn't nearly as menacing. He was just... Yeah, his voice wasn't as deep. It's an interesting change. I just feel like some of the things that I loved about the other ones, it's weird. Again, like you said, like, I don't know why we need this. Like, if you're going to give me half versions of these characters that we grew to love. Like, why do they need to be half of what they were before?
Yeah, well, they're ultimately there for punchline. Like the one scene that I think of in particular is like, no, not you, the one to the right of you. And then he just jumps off the witness and then jumps off of there. It's a hilarious scene, but it doesn't get into the depths of where you have a character like Nux who has a true backstory and whatnot. It's just a throwaway moment for what is a very hilarious punchline.
Yeah. All right, so that gives us a 1. Should we go in half a blood bag on that one?
I'm just trying to be not a complete cynical bastard on this, and I'm gonna just give it a little bit of credit where I think it's due, because some of like Scrotus and those guys, I know these. They really embodied what they were trying to do out there in their own way. The Immortan Joe character. What's he gonna do? He's just kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a similar thing. It's like Raul Julia in Street Fighter 2, where he's just kind of.
Oh, Raul Julia.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about that movie randomly a couple of weeks ago. Someone posted or something. I was like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
All right, so we got, I guess we got 2.5 blood bags here. Oh, goodness gracious. Here we go. Vehicular manslaughter. And this is the road war, the vehicles, all the stuff that happens on the road. How do we like that here?
It reminds me of the chase scene at the end of Beyond Thunderdome, where it wasn't particularly exciting for me. I mean, there were a few exciting moments, like but they seemed superfluous. They were just action set piece things to, grab a paraglider out of the air with a grappling hook, or, getting the piss boy onto the to handle the radiator situation, and all of these things are very exciting ideas and whatnot. But in like even the Bobby knocker, and then I don't know what you even call this thing, but the Octo dude, his flying Zeppelin. It's visually interesting, but ultimately, to what end? All of the vehicles are kind of gray and uninteresting in this movie. They don't have they don't all have the individual character necessarily that some of the other movies had, with each of them seeming like they. You had glimpses of some of the main character cars or whatever that were central to it, but you didn't have like these weird, like, I'm trying to think of what I'm trying to articulate exactly, because some of the spiked cars that you would see in Fury Road, for instance, those were very visually interesting. There was nothing particularly visually interesting about the vehicles that were involved in the chase scenes in this movie, and there were a couple of cool moments, but otherwise it was just tedious. So I feel like I got to go blood bag on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I concur with a lot of that. I also go blood bag. Here's the thing. Like, I liked some of it, like especially the very first one where they don't know that Furiosa is Furiosa yet, and she's dealing with the dynamite, and she's. There are some cool things, like the rig has like the slides and the rails and the things that move around. Like, there's some cool functional stuff on that is pretty cool, but I'm still saying to myself, does this need to exist?
Yeah.
Because it's like half speed of what we saw before. And I know it's difficult to have to keep comparing this to Fury Road, a movie that so abnormally got so many accolades, not just critically, but it also got like nominations out the ass. And for being an action film, that's really crazy how many nominations it got. Like, but if you're a Mad Max fan, like, I'm not just going back to Fury Road. I mean, Road Warrior set the tone. I mean, Road Warrior had more interesting things with less technology, it didn't have any visual effects really in it. other than practical. And so
But
I'm
it had
just,
stakes. It had urgency. It had you
mm-hmm,
cared. I mean, this just kind of meandered for 2.5 hours.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, there's some stuff I like, but I'm not being taken to the same high. And it's never good when you're asking yourself like, well, does this need to exist? And so for that, I give it the blood bag. It's unfortunate, but it's where we are, Mr. Miller. 3.5 blood bags to 0.5 shiny and chrome. Here we go. How great is this apocalypse, huh? So this is us talking about the setting, the surroundings. We get a few different flavors in this one because we get some of those early Green Place, views. What do you think?
Yeah, the biblical allegories were just overt and
Yeah,
it's like
40 days, the 40-day war.
Oh yeah. And then the highways were pristine. You know the I don't even the shots where you had the teddy bear hitting they were even clean. There was nothing gritty and apocalyptic about any of this movie. And I think that there were stylistic choices involved in making it less apocalyptic. And for instance, their Garden of Eden at the beginning. But then you go on to Chris Hemsworth and his little motorcycle church, and then it's also pristine. But the Citadel, everything is clean and pristine, and it's not as defined. And was what was interesting about the previous films. It was it was apocalyptic and gritty, and in this one everything was just gray and shiny and chrome, literally. But it's all blood bag as far as from a rating perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just like scratching my head. I'm like, timeline wise, I mean, I guess we're left to guess Furiosa's age during all these times and how old she is.
I guess Max appearing kind of for that one little moment would contextualize it within the frame. So it's certainly post first movie. Don't know if it would be post Road Warrior or not. Well, yeah, it'd have to be. Yeah, I suppose it would be somewhere in there.
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like, it just feels like the setting was an afterthought in a lot of ways. The set pieces are very similar. Like the Citadel is very similar. I don't know. I just expected it to be slightly different. You know what I mean? Like, but it's kind of that same desert. And I just didn't see anything that captured me in the setting. And then the peach tree thing, when she grows a peach tree on him, I'm just like, that's kind of out of nowhere. It's like, how great. It's like, I guess we're like struggling to exchange food, and we're exchanging food with these different groups, but we can grow peaches on human corpses all of a sudden.
Yeah. And it's that campfire fairy tale bullshit, but then also with the Wayne's World, like choose your own adventure ending.
Yeah. I know we get 3 different endings from this narrator.
And none of them are particularly interesting.
Yeah. And then I feel like they were trying to be interesting by throwing this peach tree thing at us, but I'm like, no.
It's stupid.
It is. It's stupid. Yeah, I don't know. And also it's like, to me, it opens a really dumb question. It's not a question that I want to answer because it's a dumb question, but it's like, oh, well, if we can really grow fruit on corpses, we make plenty of corpses. So why don't we have more food?
Yeah, I would imagine that there would be a farm of peach trees, just the way that there were milkers and breeders, and everything's a resource. So naturally, you would have more of those. So don't give them any ideas. I don't want a goddamn next installment with like a bunch of peach. It was a bad idea. Just leave it as it was a campfire story. Like bullshit. We don't need any more of the peach tree. This movie was so. I think that they should show this movie in orientations for refugee camps. I think that it was that bad.
Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, dude, Miller really has gotten too much mileage out of the campfire tale thing. He really has.
Yeah, it's a catch-all for your screw ups. I'm just gonna start. Oh, the other thing that he does in this movie that I found hilarious is that there would be like a mediocre line, and then it would be surrounded by a sound effect every time. I'm gonna start implementing that on stage. Just every time I don't get the response I'm looking for. It's like a Nebraska dad energy, and I'm like, no response, and it's like.
It's the equivalent to like a rim shot, in like the 1950s late night comedy, please take my wife. Oh my gosh. It's so true. Oh my God. They ruined this thing. They
awful.
really did. I don't feel bad shitting on it either, honestly.
No, not even a little, and not even for misogynistic reasons at all. Yeah. I can't even think of a good misogynistic reason to crap on it. And I liked Lady Ghostbusters, first of all. I mean, not as a Ghostbusters movie, but it was as a goofy comedy, because it was just asinine and it didn't exist in a real world. I mean, I digress, but this movie has. I can't even think of it in terms of like a gender politics movie in the first place, because Miller did it so well in the previous installments anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's just none of that here. There's just none of that complexity here.
No.
Man, and also, I don't know where this even fits in the category, but her arm, her arm was never that effective in Fury Road. Like, it was never this, she's got like a saw, she's got a bolt cutter like that requires that was kitschy to do that.
Yeah, no, it's like that steampunk arm in Army of Darkness. Bruce Campbell, all of a sudden, he's got a steampunk arm happening. Also, what I had a problem with is when she was riding the motorcycle away after losing the arm in the first place. I'm like, you can't have gas and clutch you have to have two arms for that. So I'm like, how is she clutching? There's no way to clutch without the other arm. Mm-hmm. Unless you can't do it. I used to ride a motorcycle. You can't. Somebody tell me in the comment section how you can gas and clutch with one arm.
Maybe she used a muscle fiber or a tendril.
Oh,
you ever use yeah. You ever use like a tendril?
Yeah, of course. Who hasn't?
Who hasn't lost an arm and then used a tendril to clutch? You know what I mean?
Now we're back in anime territory. I don't watch those kind of animes.
Yeah. One time I used my torn ACL to accelerate. I wrapped it around and yeah.
Yeah, that's just good survival instinct right there. You're going to need these skills in the apocalypse.
Just normal shit, dude. Just peach trees and tendrils. That's all. That's what they could have called this movie. A peach tree.
That's what I'm going to call our band.
Yeah. Oh man, I love doing these with you, dude.
Yeah, you too, man.
Yeah. Let's see. We are at 4.5 here. We are almost wrapped up here. It's not going well. It's 0.5 on the Shining Chrome, and that was let's be real, that was a sympathy half point.
Yeah. For
that
sure.
Let's see. How good are these bad guys, huh?
Let's see. Who's the bad guys again?
Yeah, Dementis. And then they add
Dementis is the bad. Yeah, okay.
I guess you could say that. I mean,
I suppose
he's a guy.
In his mind, he's the protagonist of this movie in his mind. So yeah. I think everyone's the protagonist of the movie in their own mind. Mm-hmm. Okay, so who else we got? We've got. Nobody interesting. Like, everybody gets a bad guy cameo for a second. Mm-hmm. There's nobody who's like doing bad guy work for an extended period of time. There's nothing interesting about. They have like a bad guy summit for a moment.
Yeah. Nipples were torn off.
Nipples were torn off. There were some bad deals made.
Really bad negotiations.
Yeah, it was hilarious, but not. Yeah. I don't know, man. I would prefer Tina Turner over what happened in this movie. I got to go blood bag on that.
Yeah, these were that meeting had parent teacher vibes, parent teacher conference vibes. It was just It's like, are you sure you want to teach Common Core math? Are you sure that's what our kid needs? It was just very.
I want to get one of those rigs and then put it on my kid's head.
Yes.
Okay, like what grade are you getting?
Yeah. Did you study? No, you didn't. You didn't
Daddy's
study.
arm's getting a little weak.
A little tired. Oh, that poor guy with the discolored middle beard, It looked like he'd been sucking on a tailpipe.
Oh, man, that poor guy. And he was even painting, but that's what you get. You can't get lackadaisical in the apocalypse. And he was getting all artsy with it. I mean, yep.
It's amazing to me, and this gets a blood bag for me, because it's just amazing to me that we have established characters here that we're purposely taking a step back from, like Immortan Joe is watered down. We're ratcheting up the wrong character. Dementis is the one I don't know if they did that on purpose because they wanted to elevate him, but like ratcheting him up, taking away from the performance of Immortan Joe and the the head of Gastown and the head of the Bullet Farm, like why do we need to tone those things down for this mediocre performance? So that's what kind of killed me, was just I was missing, and that's like I said earlier, it's a risk when you get into these prequels, because you're like you know the end result, what you have seen, and so your expectations are high. It's like, would it have been that hard to keep these characters in their lane where they were at first, it's weird. Supposedly Immortan Joe should be younger here, less radiation. He should be less suffering from that less. So he should be a little more here, you would think.
Yeah.
But
he should
he's
be
less.
doing he should be doing a cartwheel or something at least. Or like the Yoda thing from the Attack of the Clones, where he's like doing tricky lightsaber tricks. If you're going to do a prequel, then, do a prequel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's just like a weird tone down. It's just weird. That's what makes me think it was just rushed. I don't know. This is where I wanted to see them kind of dip in. Hey, at least I get Immortan Joe back. But I was like, this is like a weird half version of that. So blood bag all the way. And I don't think I like, people are going to probably hate me for this, but I don't think I like Hemsworth as an actor.
Yeah.
I just don't, and maybe it's because the jocularity of the whole thing. And he reminds me of every person that kicked my ass in high school, but There's no
depth to the guy at all. I mean, he's just being the same guy he is when he's Thor, or there's nothing interesting. He can't do emotional complexity. He can get fat because he screwed up and half the population snapped out of existence or something like that. But he's still doing the same exact thing as when he was thin.
Yeah, he just the whole time I'm just thinking, and in a universe where we are enthralled by our villains, where they all seem very interesting. Like, you ask questions. I don't know if you felt that way. Like, I know I keep going back to Road Warrior, but that to me is the ultimate, right? So, like, I'm wondering who Wes was. I'm wondering, like, why is Humongous this way? Like, who was he before? Like, here I'm like, this guy was probably just an annoying prick. Like, he is an annoying prick now.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's a one-dimensional caricature. There were some interesting side characters and they didn't even need lines or anything else. Just George Miller was picking interesting side characters, and, Praetorian Jack was a complete unnecessary thing. There was nothing interesting about this guy whatsoever, and nothing interesting about the character. You knew everything you were supposed to know about him because he was a one-dimensional character.
Yeah. All right. I'm trying to see if I'm doing this math right. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 blood bags to 0.5 shiny and chrome here. We're doomed, but we're going to go through it. These last two categories are interesting because I kept them. I was thinking I should replace them because these elements really didn't exist here, but I think we need to keep them here because these two are really the soul of this franchise. So it has to do with the Western elements and the strangers in need. So we'll start with A Stranger Walks into Town. The Western soul, which we've talked about immensely, and even Beyond Thunderdome still had some of this even though they decided to mix it with some Robin Hood and some Peter Pan. But what do we think? What do you think about the Western soul here?
Yeah, it wasn't there as much in this particular movie. Furiosa herself kind of had that hero's journey arc through this movie, and you get to watch that whole progression. But there was nothing particularly Western about it to me. The only I do remember thinking that the only thing that felt like spiritually akin to a Western was the Bullet Farm shootout scenes. They just looked like your old John Ford Western shootout scenes that you might see in a mine shaft or something like that. Mm-hmm. But other than that, there's nothing inherently Western, because the hero's journey is in just about every story. So, sure, you could contextualize anything as a Western if you really wanted to, but mm-hmm. I don't feel like there's anything particularly. This is more biblical than it is Western.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're going blood bag there. Yeah, same. It's missing here. It's not even there, and unfortunately we made this category because that's really the foundation of the stories for almost every single entry. Yes, it goes up and down a little bit, but Fury Road was a great example of that, where he literally entered and left almost, completely disguised. He left as quickly as he came, and no one noticed he left except for Furiosa. He just snuck out and was going to go to the next town. And that is the Western archetype. And it works. And it is the foundation for so much of the storytelling. And they took it out completely here. And wow, I just got this thought. I hadn't even written this down, but like to see maybe Furiosa do what Max does when she goes and gets involved, and like maybe an adult Charlize Theron. Do we need a prequel? How about we actually get a Furiosa movie with grown Furiosa where she's then doing that? I feel like that's a wide open playing field where that Western formula could have been really successful, but eliminating it here was a huge mistake.
Yeah, I agree. It just takes all of the. And then so you have something entirely different, which it is a Mad Max tale, so you got the Mad Max in quotation marks, and maybe it's unfair to contextualize this amongst the other Mad Max movies because it's not the same thing. But if this had been an anime film, or this could be a very interesting series of films. If they continue doing it, maybe it'll find its voice. I'm not going to watch any of them. I have no interest in them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just giving up on the halves here because every time I try to figure out the half scores here, it screwed me up. But we get the message here. I'm just going to say straight up that it's like 6 to maybe whatever. We're just going to say
0.5.
0.5. Yeah. Sorry, fan base. I struggle with the math on the halves, but we're getting the point across. We're going to finish up with Strangers in Need. Again, I thought about replacing these categories, but I think if we're grading a Mad Max film, this is an element where we've studied deeply here, and it's not really here, is it?
No, I'm trying to even think of it in those terms, as far as Furiosa herself is who is in need throughout the film. It's just kind of her tumbling through, like Forrest Gumping her way through through her character progression to get her where what's interesting is you lose that, not only that Western element that we talked about before, but you're literally dovetailing directly into the next movie. So there you get Strangers in Need. So there's an implication that she's going to be helping these strangers in need. She's going to be helping these women who are, the prisoners of Immortan Joe. She's going to be helping these people, but right now she's not helping anyone. She's just kind of Sarah Connor learning her skill set in Mexico from Praetorian Jack. She's in her badass college years, so it's all about her.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm missing these characters. I'm missing the thing that pulls Max into the story. And what's there's no pulling going on here. We're kind of just in Furiosa's timeline of her story of survival and how she gets to the point where we meet her in Fury Road. Not really helping a lot of people along the way, which again, it's a different story, but still it's just like that hospitality is what makes Max such an interesting character. He's a loner, but his flaw is that he can't help but get involved and help people. And that was just missing here, man. I just, and these people are in need. You see people in need, it's not like these people are.
Yeah, she literally was trying to like pushing away the people that are in need, like the people that are the cave dwelling people that were actually helping her with wound ablaze with maggots and things like that. It's like, like you remind me of my first mother-in-law. Get away from me.
Stop. I don't want another stocking above the fireplace, please. Yeah, no, you're right, man. Wow. We cleaned house here. Whatever you want to call it, 7.5 or whatever the math. This didn't go well for our friend Furiosa.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
I want to wrap up though. Like, so we just did the whole franchise. Took us some time, but we did it. I want to hear your stack rank of all the films, but also maybe just like a 60-second summary of just like if you were like on an elevator and someone just said, summarize your thoughts on the entire Mad Max franchise.
All right, so we're gonna go Fury Road on top. Honestly, after rewatching the whole series, then I'm gonna go Road Warrior. Then I'm gonna go Mad Max 1, and then I'm gonna go Beyond Thunderdome, and then I'm gonna go Furiosa at the very bottom. And as far as the series goes, it's essentially you've got a brilliant sci-fi filmmaker through the arc of his entire career and through many different zeitgeists and cultural movements, essentially capturing some of the political turmoil of the time in great sci-fi, satire and action movies. You said 60 seconds, and then I got all self-conscious about trying to wrap it up.
Go. So. How about this? Go as long as you need to. That's just a dumb way to say something for me. My bad. No, you go, baby. The people want to hear it.
Okay, but it's essentially you're getting a series that not only captures gender politics in a way that other action movies weren't doing at the time. You're capturing like action sequences that didn't exist in movies at the time. There are a couple of crappy entries in the series, but it's one of the best action / sci-fi / dystopia series out there. So even if there are two really crappy entries in that, it's still I much respected George Miller as a filmmaker and what he's done throughout his career, even though he's just cashing checks at the end, which is what I hope to do one day. It's like I want to sell out so bad and just cash all the checks one day. So
tell them about Mad Matthew. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Your franchise. That's a good summary, man. It's awesome. We're gonna have different stack ranks. I think I don't know what you're gonna think about mine. It's really weird. Road Warrior, which probably doesn't surprise you because the amount of times I praise it through all the other episodes that aren't about Road Warrior. Fury Road. It's so close though. Between those two, it is so close. Maybe the nostalgia factor plays really big for Road Warrior for me.
Sure.
Mad Max. This is where it gets a little crazy. I put Furiosa above Beyond Thunderdome.
Okay.
Both are just bad.
Yeah.
Bad movies. I at least appreciated that the Fletch 80s soundtrack didn't make it into Furiosa. I at least appreciated more that they put a few elements in there that kept it at least within the bounds of the universe. I found what this was really hard, and I went back and forth. What ultimately landed Thunderdome at the bottom of the list for me was that it was just so far off base with the Robin Hood Peter Pan story, the weird 80s soundtrack. Just the PG-13 rating, the softening of the story. No, they took the Road Warrior off the road. It was just they just did so many things that were just so unforgivable to me. So it was really hard between the two. At least Furiosa had a few things that it shared with Fury Road that were enough to keep me at least interested. And it had enough road warfare to keep me going. At least this is a Road Warrior film. So that was a really tough decision to make for me. Is that weird? What do you think?
No, I completely get it. I think that if maybe Furiosa had come out when I was, in third grade, that maybe that I would have the reverse order on that as well. It is if you look at, because I don't necessarily think I'm looking at Beyond Thunderdome in an objective sense, because I get entertained by it every time I watch it. So. I don't think I'm going to get entertained by Furiosa every time I watch it. I can go back and rewatch Beyond Thunderdome again sometime, and even though it's flawed, I'm like, yeah, all right. This is kind of a fun way. If I have the flu, this is going to be a fun way to kill a couple of hours.
See, I can't. But if you put it that way, I can't go back to either of those movies. Oh, I will never. I'm never going to watch either again. My little summary is. Incredible. And one of my favorite things about this was the education you brought about just the Australian tradition of that birthed this type of film, and it eventually changes the whole setting of action, and it leaks into America, and it turned into this crazy thing. And I see George Miller as both this innovator, but someone who can't help but you called it cashing the checks. Develop these two. He has these weird two caricatures of these great films. Like to me, I don't understand the drop off from Road Warrior to Beyond Thunderdome. The lack of seriousness. That's where we start hearing about this campfire tale methodology, where that becomes an excuse. It was just so outlandish. And then you have Fury Road, which is this just apex, and it's considered one of the greatest action films, maybe not if the greatest action film by a lot of people. And then we get this Furiosa. The question isn't necessarily, is he a great filmmaker? Because we know he is, but why does he feel the need to fill the gaps with these really shitty versions of what is great? But at the same time, it does that frustrate me a little bit, but I'm still glad we have Road Warrior. And I love that it launched Mel Gibson, because we got a lot of great Mel Gibson down the road with Lethal Weapon and all these different series. So there's more good than bad. And I still think I can in my mind, I can take Beyond Thunderdome and I can take Furiosa out and say George Miller is someone who's, in terms of being a film fan, is very essential to my fandom. And I forever will appreciate, and I've had a lot of good memories just chilling, watching Road Warrior, watching Mad Max. And so overall, net positive, good stuff.
Yeah, and nobody has 100% like track record. Andrei Tarkovsky is the only director I can think of that has 100% track record. Everybody else has a crappy couple of films. So, you know, George Miller, like I said, keep cashing checks is all the way to the end, dude. Just like coach some anime series and cash all those checks. Yeah,
man. Well, dude, this has been a blast, and I'm so glad that we finally got to wrap this up. You and I are going to, I'm still getting this all scheduled, but we are going to sit down in person with Mr. Seth, and we're going to talk Kill Bill.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one, man. Tarantino, I'm just, I'm a nerd of a certain age, so it's just like I have no choice but to be really into Tarantino, and specifically Kill Bill. It changed the whole trajectory for me, so.
I love that. I kind of want to, we haven't decided this yet. I kind of want to do all the Tarantino.
Oh, yeah, I'd be totally down. Oh,
I kind of want to.
Yeah.
Just start at the beginning and go all the way through. I got to convince Seth, but dude, thank you again. This has been a blast, and we finally did it. We wrapped it up, man. And I'm Kyle.
And I'm Matthew. And also, I just want to say, give us time, and we'll teach you everything you need to know about movie war.
That wasn't hope, that was instinct. All right, love y'all.
Peace.
We did it.
Movie Wars.